Imagine waking up in America and learning that a foreign-looking war caravan just entered the country through Texas. 25 armored carriers, 130 mercenaries equipped with rotary cannons firing 3,000 rounds per minute, and 1,300 drums of chemicals containing more than 600,000 pounds of lethal precursors worth billions on the black market. This was not another cartel operation. It was a traveling fortress transporting the fuel for artificial drugs and even guns that could poison millions. But the terror continued. Their destination was a fortress only 7 miles from a town where 180 women and children were held hostage by human traffickers. For years, this cartel empire was sustained on blood money, slavery, and murder. But today, the US military was faced with an impossible decision. Take out the convoy before it made it to the fortress, or face a full-blown war that would cost the lives of thousands of innocents. Drones hovered above, Washington monitored every beat of that convoy, and as the Joint Chiefs Chairman said, "If they make it to the base, America pays in blood, we will stop them, whatever it takes." The mercenaries thought they were invincible, but they had no idea their clock was already running out. The question is, what would you do if you were in charge? Strike now or wait till the convoy reached the stronghold? By 8:20 a.m., the cartel caravan roared through the gates of its secret refuge, a fortress masquerading as warehouses mere 7 miles from El Paso's suburbs. Behind steel walls 15 feet high, shrouded in razor wire and protected by 12 rotary cannons, was a horror. Over 180 women and children in captivity, some days from being trafficked, others going hungry under gunpoint vigil. If the chemicals did get in, this fortress would become an impenetrable center of terror and blood money. Airstrikes were out of the question. One missile would kill the hostages, so the only recourse was surgical accuracy. US Navy SEALs, SAS troops, and UAVs were in place when fate intervened. At 8:27, an American drone flew too close to radar range. Alarms screamed, the whole mission hanging in the balance, until US electronic warfare created a tempest of spurious signals, shrouding the fortress in electronic smoke. The convoy was within, the hostages were within, and escape was no longer an option. At 8:45, the battlefield was sketched. Almost 350 mercenaries were armed to the teeth, confident their steel barricades and human shields rendered them invulnerable. What they did not see were 350 Navy SEALs in hiding. Snipers targeted from half a mile, breach teams poised to burst into hostage cells, divers tracking drainage tunnels, and over them 95 ghostly UAVs hovering unseen, each loaded with a precision charge powerful enough to vaporize gun nests in an instant. All those drones bore the power of half a ton of C4. Hung silently in the desert AIR.8910 a.m., the operation was executed with sterile precision. 15 UAVs plunged on the western perimeter, ripping the fortress wide open and attracting more than 80 mercenaries into a maelstrom of fire and explosions, while simultaneously, 50 Navy SEALs breached the eastern wall using thermite charges, shearing steel in less than 20 seconds. Silenced MP-7s hissed death as defenders died in silence, each one toppling before alarms sounded. Snipers picked off targets above, gunners falling in seconds, while the second wave of 30 drones swept in, shredding rotary cannons and exploding fuel storages that flung fireballs 200 feet into the air. The mercenaries, previously assured behind guns and steel, were now blind and shattered, their fortress falling in a matter of minutes. Within, corridors rang with stun grenades and shotgun fire as SEAL teams pushed in disciplined waves, clearing rooms and making silence in their trail. Even as firefights came, more than 400 rounds traded near the barracks. Wounded Americans would not fall back, fighting forward until the defenders were eliminated. At 9:25, 3 sides of the fortress were afire, 47 precision-guided drone strikes had breached its defenses, and 23 mercenaries had been dispatched by sniper fire alone. What had been a fortress had become a trap, but the operation was hardly over because inside those walls, more than 180 hostages were still chained, waiting to be rescued before the fires consumed them. While the fortress burned, desperation compelled the cartel guards to push women and children toward the shooting lines, hoping to make them human shields. For the SEALs, this was the knife's edge, the second when the battle would be won or lost in terms of massacre or victory. At 9:27 a.m., the last order rang out on the comms. Push to the hostage cells, no quarter given to anyone who gets in your way. What ensued was the most intense part of the battle. Bravo team pushed into the eastern warehouse first, shattering steel doors with explosives and killing 6 mercenaries in less than a minute before one of them could shoot a hostage. Within minutes, 62 hostages were released, shaking but unharmed. In the central compound, 70 fighters entrenched dug in with belt-fed machine guns, firing more than 1,200 rounds in minutes. The SEALs retaliated with grenades, pinning fire, and merciless accuracy, killing 29 mercenaries and wounding 15 as they cut a path along. In the air, the final wave of drones dived into caches and depots, burning 4,000 gallons of diesel fuel and exploding crates of mortars, RPGs, and rifles. Shockwaves brought down guard towers and ended the last heavy weapons, leaving the fortress a raging firestorm. At 9:45 a.m., the result was obvious. 182 hostages saved, not a single one killed, and almost 320 mercenaries dead or in custody. The 1,300 drums of chemicals, sufficient to inundate America with billions of narcotics, were captured in one piece. Amidst the devastation, the words of the American general ring through the smoke. This was never for chemicals or guns. It was for lives. Anybody who attempts to traffic in human misery on America's border will meet only ash and fire. And so, the trafficker and killer fortress disappeared from the desert, leaving a warning etched in steel, blood, and unbreakable determination. It stood as a fortress of traffickers, mercenaries, and murderers and was brought down to smoldering devastation under American administration. Within a half hour, the world's greatest fighters had broken an empire of terror. 320 fighters killed or captured, guns destroyed, trucks incinerated, fortress obliterated. Out of the ash, U.S. troops took 1,300 chemical drums, close to 700,000 pounds of precursors valued at billions on the black market, plus stockpiles of rifles, rocket launchers, and blood-stained cash that would never hit American streets. But the most significant triumph wasn't numbers or metal, it was humanity. That day, 182 women and children strolled free of bondage, evidence that accuracy, order, and bravery can conquer even the most depths of cruelty. In Washington, there was no uncertainty about delivering the message. This was not merely a fight, this was an ultimatum. Any cartel, militia, or mercenary force which dares to smuggle chemicals, guns, or human lives into the United States will be destroyed. The border is not a line drawn on a map. It is a line America will fight for with fire and blood. But one question remains. Will this firm blow intimidate enemies into secrecy, or will it ignite even more ferocity from those lurking in the darkness? Only time will tell. What does this victory say about the future of America's battle against cartels and traffickers? Let us know in the comments, and if you think this tale of courage and sacrifice needs to be heard, support this channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing so more hear the truth.